I want to ask you a question we haven't talked about previously. When you think about audacity, and when you think about delivering that to your client groups, without giving any names away for the obvious reasons, can you give me an example of somebody who got transformed? A little bit about a story about someone who got transformed through audacity.
Yes, I had one client who was a CFO at a large organization. And when the organization brought me on to do some work with different teams in the organization, she identified me as the person that she wanted as her coach. And I don't always coach people because I'm busy running a company.
Right.
And so I said, "Hey, you signed the big check, so let's talk about this." And so I ended up coaching her, and as I coached her, what we realized was the difference between where she wanted and where she wanted to be, where she was and where she wanted to be, was audacity. She did not have the audacity to step away from her role and go after her dreams.
Before we get into the rest of the story detail, what what do you think was holding her back? I mean, I'm certain the answer is going to be audacity was sort of the engine that drove her there, but what was the resistance based on?
The resistance was based on fear. And yes, audacity is the overarching thing, but what drives that? She was afraid of potentially failing. So she wasn't audacious enough to take the action because what if I step out of this role I've always been in? I've always been in finances. My degree was in finance. I've had my entire career to be in the CFO of this multi-billion dollar organization as a finance person. I wanna step out and do this other thing. What if I'm not good at it?
Sorry for the interruption. From my perspective, when I think about the definition of audacity, it's kind of what you just explained, which is be afraid, but do it anyway. That to me is what audacity is. Be afraid, but do it anyway.
Absolutely. It's what I tell my children, I want you to be courageous, not fearless. Courage is doing it even though you're doing it even though you're afraid, doing it with your knees shaking, doing it with your teeth clacking together, doing it with goosebumps, but doing it and risking it, which is why in my household, we've never taken on the mantra that failure is not an option. Because if you believe that failure is not an option, you will never be audacious because you will only do the things you know you can do successfully. Failure has to be an option.